Can you see my screen, the Hybrid Viewer Workshop PowerPoint presentation? Okay, great. Thank you very much for that introduction, Steve. As Steve said, I am, a lot of you will know me. I'm a clinical application specialist for Hermes Medical, worked with the company for 5 years or so now. And I have recently been spending a lot of time working with Hybrid Viewer, mainly with migrating customers over from classic applications to the Hybrid Viewer platform. But also as well, I am involved in the testing of the new releases that come out. So I'm going to be presenting today on some of the new features that are coming in version 6. If I can just, hopefully my page has changed over to the overview now. I'm going to be running this today. Pardon, sorry, Helena?
Oh yes, it has changed. That's good.
Okay. Great. Okay, that's great. So yeah, so I'm going to be running today as a live Hybrid Viewer workshop, and I'm going to be actually running it live on my system on my Gold workstation environment. As I say, I'm going to be talking you through some of the new features that we've got coming to existing applications, but also we've got some exciting new applications adding to the nuclear medicine processing suite. As you know, Hybrid Viewer is an incredibly comprehensive platform. So I'm going to focus on a couple of the key features that are coming. There's obviously many. I could talk for hours on the new things that would be coming, but you'll be glad to hear I'm only going to be talking for 40 minutes or so today. As Steve mentioned before, I think if you could put all of your comments or any questions in the chat box, and obviously we'll try to address those at the end of the workshop. So Hybrid Viewer version 6 will be coming soon. For those of you who've seen the recent newsletter, it will hopefully give you a little bit of a taster of the new features, or some of the new features that will be coming. It includes a whopping 174 tickets of new features, bug fixes, and importantly, your improvement suggestions for the products. So it's a really, really big key release, and I'm really excited to be able to show you some of the functionality today. Just to give you an update on sort of release status, we're probably going to be looking at release at the end of next month, or around the end of next month. We are due to be starting the last round of testing this week, and then obviously it will go through the whole kind of quality control. If we find any bugs or anything, then they will be addressed, and then finally it will be officially released. But as Helena alluded to earlier on in her presentations, it's quite a complicated process, and it's obviously very regulated as well in terms of the release. So please bear with us, but it will be with you soon. As per the newsletter, there's going to be some new features that are coming. Some are related to display, so improvements in display. You've been saying to us for a long time that you wanted more configurability with layouts. You wanted more configurability with text size in reports, in the report tables. So I'm very happy to say that that is now here. So you can optimize the size of your results tables, which obviously will mean that they will be very impactful when they go over to PACS now. And also as well, very importantly, you told us that you wanted the print output to look nice, but also as well, obviously, you wanted it to look very professional. So there's been a lot of changes that have been made within the Hybrid Viewer environment, which will hopefully deliver that for you. So I'm going to be showing you today some examples of some prints and some of the tools that will be useful to both improve the display to allow you to facilitate your workflow and for your processing purposes, but also as well, it will look good when it gets sent to the referring clinician. Similarly, some of the new features that are coming are extensions to the applications themselves. So DMSA, we've got a lovely new Duplex renogram functionality, ability to do post-mic geometric means. So that's really nice. So I'm going to show you that. And then also as well, I mentioned we've got some lovely new tools for you to play with. So that includes the CT quality assurance program in line with the NEMA guidelines. There is a lovely new CCAT application, which I know is like kind of like top of the wish list for a lot of you. And then also as well, we've got a nice new ROI ratio applications for you to use. So let's take a look. So hopefully, Helena, has it opened my gold?
Yes, it has, Lynn.
Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, I also just wanted to say, Steve, as well, I can obviously talk for a long time on this, so would you mind keeping an eye on the time for me? And by all means, shout if I'm going on too long and it looks like I'm going to be running over time.
That's no problem at all. How long do you want me to leave for questions, Lynn? Just as a this session finishes at 10 to 3, so there's 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yet.
Yeah, okay, so shall we say maybe if I go through these, I think I could probably do this in half an hour,
okay.
Going through the new features, and then we've got maybe 10 minutes at the end to discuss and take it forward. So yeah, so if you could maybe kind of give me an alarm in about half an hour, that would be lovely. Yeah,
no problem.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you DMSA. Now, I'm going to be using the DMSA application here to show you both the improved display and print configurability that I alluded to in the last slide, but also as well, I will show you the new features specific to the DMSA application itself. I'm just going to move this out of the way because I don't know whether you can see this too, which, there we go. Sorry, too many screens open. Okay, so first of all, just talking about the DMSA application specifically. So one of the new options now is the ability to display oblique images as part of the processing page, the DMSA processing page. So no longer do you need to keep them just separate on the statics page, which is obviously nice for output. So now potentially you can do a print of this processing page and it contains everything that you need. You'll also notice that you've got the option for a duplicate anterior and posterior image in the statics page, or sorry, in the processing page, and this obviously allows you to show the anterior and posterior images without the ROI images, or without the ROI superimposed on top of the images. So I know that's something that a few of you had requested as desirable in previous discussions. You'll be happy to know that custom object placement is now possible. So just to show you in the layout page now. So there is much more configurability now in DMSA and in also all of the processing applications on this layout tab to be able to specify exactly where you would like your objects to appear within the processing page. So this is a huge step forward in terms of configurability, and as I mentioned before, it allows you to optimize for your workflows and also as well optimize for your print output to packs. So that's really nice improved custom processing environment. As I said, you've also got the option to be able to adjust your font sizes as part of this layout tab. So you can change both the title font, which is here, obviously indicated in bold, and then also as well you can change your font of your actual results themselves. You will I also just wanted to highlight as well, so on this general tab here, both in this application and also in the other processing applications, you've now got a couple of new options. So this one that's here, which mentions about patient information and a header, is something that did come in version 5.1 of Renograms. So some of you will have already seen this, but it now has been implemented in all of the applications in version 6, and it references this header up at the top of the image pane. So it's more comparable to what you are used to seeing in your classic output. And the benefit of obviously removing the or having this option turned on is that you can remove a lot of the text from the actual image panes themselves. So it does look a lot cleaner by removing all of the sort of patient demographic details and moving those out of your image field. So that's really nice. There also as well is a new option, which again is sort of comparable to functionality that you would have seen in classic applications. So now when you want to disable an image, if you click on change selection, you can now just do a double left click. Which is, as I say, much more comparable to what you're used to in your classic applications. So that's really nice. Obviously, a lot more efficient in terms of disabling unrequired images. Similarly as well, just going back to layout options, because we have many more layout configurability options here, what you can do is you can create custom layouts both for your non-duplex and for your duplex kidneys, which means actually that because you're creating them in the layout page here, on the application window, you can actually flick between the two different layouts. So actually, it means that whilst in the past you had to have two separate DMSA entities, one for your non-duplex and one for your duplex kidneys, now you could have just the one entity within your gold, and you could flick through accordingly if needed. Obviously, you would have your extra ROIs that would be appearing in the list, but you could just to go here. Obviously, if they were superfluous to requirements for that particular case, you could just not draw them for that particular patient. So that's really nice. Also as well, with the duplex kidney functionality in the DMSA, you now have the option to be able to have a dedicated background ROI for each one of the poles, rather than needing to use the whole of the background or the whole kidney background for the correction for the upper and lower moieties. So that's DMSA. So I'm just going to close out of this now and just continuing the chat about duplex. We're going to move on to duplex renograms, which again is a really nice advancement in functionality in version 6, and currently in Hybrid Viewer we are having to utilize either the left or the right kidney as kind of like a workaround really for defining the upper and lower moieties, but obviously that has its limitations because that means that you can't assess the whole kidney alongside the kidney moieties. Now we have a dedicated duplex mode in Renogram, which is activated under the general tab. You can see here it says duplex kidney mode. So when that is activated, it will allow you to define some dedicated upper and left kidney regions, which will then pull through to the results table, and it's really nice because it will allow you to assess the quantification of the upper and left poles, upper and lower poles, alongside the functionality and the quantification of the whole kidney. And potentially as well, I mean, it's not obviously going to be very common in the clinical environment, but if you did come across a case that had bilateral duplex kidneys, although the screen would obviously be very busy in that use case, now you potentially have the functionality to be able to process those cases alongside the standard left-right split.
Also, sorry to interrupt you. That sounds like a really awesome feature, and I know that people have been asking for this. Do you know if all of the relative function, all the different ways that renogram can calculate relative function, are they all available for the duplex mode? So if it was a Lutton and Patlack, for example, do we do that duplex as well?
I don't know, I'm afraid. I can certainly, I think so. Yeah, I haven't sort of pushed it to its limits yet, I think, in terms of the testing. But yes, I'm not entirely sure, Helena. I think certainly.
So yeah. Look, I don't think there's a reason not to. I was trying to think through it when I was asked about this at a demo recently. I was trying to think, is there a reason why we can't apply Lutton and Patlack duplex? And I don't think there is. So yeah.
No, I mean in the next version, in the next example that I'm going to show for the post-MIC geometric mean, I have got a blood region configured in that. So we could turn on the duplex mode and we can have a look and see if it actually will.
Maybe we should do it live.
Statistics. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
totally. Yeah, don't worry.
Yes, yeah, but I mean, it's such a step forward, you know, in terms of functionality, you know, and it's something that has been, you know, we've needed for a long time, you know, and it now just works so slickly. You know, I just think that it's a big step forward, and I think that it's going to be, yeah, a huge help in the clinical environment.
Like, it's so niche as a thing that people want to do, but yeah, it's one of those, that's what Hermes is for, is these very niche cases that are tricky to handle elsewhere.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, as I say, I've only had limited sort of time to play with it currently, but certainly what I've seen of it, yeah, it's really nice. We've got a lot more functionality as well, or not a lot more result reporting options as well in version 6. So you can see that I've turned some of them on in here. We've got more excreted activity options, more residual activity options. So yeah, there's lots more customization in terms of the output. So I'm sure that it will have something for everyone. Also as well, we've got some options for some custom markers. Again, that was something that we've heard you sort of shouting about, both in the renogram but also in a lot of the applications, about having the option to add your own markers. So certainly in a handful of the applications in version 6, you now have this option, and I know that the plan is to roll out more custom markers for subsequent versions of Hybrid Viewer, but again, it just adds to the ability to be able to customize for your workflows, which is lovely. So what else to show you? So there's so many options. Oh, sorry, yeah, one thing I did want to say actually as well, we've also now got more options with regard to the GFR and ERPF. So we obviously have had this functionality for GFR for a long time now, but what we have now got within the configuration, which I'm just trying to remember whereabouts it is exactly, obviously in the process page. So within the table, we can now again specify where we want the GFR results to appear. So it's not as rigid as it has been in previous results. It's got this left-right indicator as well, and they're also just trying to again see where it is. There is a normal range, or there's the option to have a normal range for GFR and ER PF as per you had in classic applications. So that's a nice new addition. I just can't remember, unfortunately, where it is at the moment.
Sorry, it's me again. It's interesting that you mentioned this, because this is not a popular option in the UK to do an imaging GFR ERPF. It's really popular with the German customers, which is a strange thing.
Yes.
They don't seem to do, because we would probably suggest that imaging GFR is not as accurate as radionuclide sampling GFR, blood sampling. Yes. Yeah, I know it's a strange thing, because Hermes have to make this application for everybody, and yeah, the Germans seem to love it.
Yeah. I think
listening is doing or using GFR or ERPF in imaging context inside here, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you say, yeah, it's certainly not a widely used technique in the UK. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about different markets, obviously having sort of different protocols, different workflows. That's something that I'm going to mention later on as well. Because some of the new functions that we have been in response to popularity from other regions such as the States. Obviously kind of they're growing in popularity, so they may cross the pond eventually, so it's good to have that functionality available for if our customers in the UK want to consider try. Sorry, Helena, did you have something more to say?
Oh, that's it, thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. One other thing as well that I wanted just to mention about the renograms. You'll remember, I can't remember whether it was version 5 or version 5.1. We brought in the option to be able to display the time activity curve with the y-axis of percentage uptake. It's not used very widely, but I know a couple of our customers are using it, and it relates to the camera efficiency factor that you can now store within the user protocol. Previously, in the previous versions, when it was implemented, you had to manually enter it for each case, each use case, which obviously was a little bit cumbersome. So it's really nice to have that functionality to be able to store it now. One of the final things I just wanted to mention with regard to the renograms is the integration of hybrid viewer renogram with Renal Curve. So you'll see here that we have a button that has appeared down at the bottom of the tools. For those of you who aren't aware of Renal Curve is an application that has been developed by Cyril Nimmin, who is obviously a very well-known chap in renal circles and also nuclear medicine circles, and he has developed his own software for processing renograms. We have integrated hybrid viewer with Renal Curve. The way the workflow is would be that you process in renogram, and then it passes through the images and the ROIs through to Renal Curve via this button, and then you can do the extended processing in the Renal Curve platform. Renal Curve is incredibly comprehensive. It's very sophisticated, and one of the key things with it is that it will actually give you a PATLAC functional image, so you don't just get a PATLAC plot. You have a representation on a per pixel basis of the PATLAC slope. Rather than sort of showing you Renal Curve, because as I say, it is incredibly comprehensive, I've borrowed a slide that Helena uses as part of her application library just to show you some of the key features. And as I say, the main one is this PATLAC slope. So for anybody that would be interested in learning more about Renal Curve, please do get in touch, and we can obviously give you more details and show you the additional additional benefits that Renal Curve can add to your renogram workflow.
Right, yeah, excellent slide.
Yes.
A lot of drive for this application has come from Great Ormond Street Hospital, where Dr. Lorenzo Biasoni in particular got very keen interest in renal processing and wants to use the most advanced ways of processing renograms. And this, so the PAT-LAC image, which is the one in the grayscale in the middle there, it's basically doing the PAT-LAC calculation for every pixel in the image. So you kind of get the uptake slope, the value of the uptake slope of the PAT-LAC plot is represented there as a grayscale value. So in that way, you get just the uptake of every pixel in the kidney, and therefore it acts like DMSA does as a tracer. So that's the idea, is that if you're doing pediatric imaging in particular, you don't have to do another DMSA. You can use this image to give you a kind of DMSA-like idea of what the DMSA would have looked like if you'd done one. So yeah, that's quick.
And as Helena said, we have been working very closely with Gosh and the team, Lorenzo and the physics team there, and they've been doing validation and suggesting improvements and tweaks to the software. So it has very much been put through its paces at Gosh. So you know, I'm sure that if anybody would like to discuss the software or also as well discuss their experience, I'm sure that they would be happy to oblige. So okay, so moving on, how are we doing for time? Okay, I think we're okay. Okay, so geometric mean renograms. So geometric mean renograms are something that we've obviously had the ability to do for a couple of versions now, but we've had the limitation that we haven't been able to process the post-MICT images alongside the geometric mean image. So even if you had acquired an anterior and a posterior post-MICT data set, you were unable to load it into the application to process side by side. That has now changed. So in version 6, we now have the ability to load all of the data sets in, and it will also generate the geometric mean image for the post-MICT data set. And here is one that I loaded in previously, is one I made earlier. Yeah, so this is obviously really nice because now this will enable us to process delayed quantification alongside the initial renogram. And you can see here, as per if you were processing just a single detector renogram with a post-MICT, you do have the post-MICT data set appearing on your time activity curve as well. Another good thing with version 6, which I know some of you have been waiting for, is the ability to motion correct geometric mean studies. So previously this was disabled, but this has now been implemented, and so it's really nice. And just, you know, the interface, the motion correction interface that you're used to seeing, just click on compute, click on OK, and it will just do it in a single step. There's no needing to apply a mirror transformation, for example, to an ulterior to the alternative data set. So that's really, really nice. Just load that back in. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Sorry about that, everybody. So that's really nice. Also, we have some more options, result options for post-MICT results. So I'll just show you that very, very quickly as well. Just go into here, post-MICT. Yeah, so a few more options for you for residual and excreted activity results. So whatever your preferences in terms of quantification reporting for your post-MICT, I'm sure that you will find it. And also as well, just finally to mention, so with this study, obviously I had a blood region, so we have our PAT-LAC fit. There has now been a clarification on the curves when PAT-LAC has been background subtraction has been applied. So it will now indicate in the title if you have used that methodology for background subtracting your renogram acquisitions. So just a bit more kind of information really that is automatically added to your print outputs. Okay, so that's it in terms of renograms. Just very quickly, I'd like to show you parathyroids. So this, the parathyroid functionality that I wanted to show you here was mainly due to just to show you the dual isotope dynamic motion correction. So you were able to apply, I think again it was in version 5 possibly, from the motion correction window you did have the option to be able to apply it to another study. So for example, if you were motion correcting on your technetium, you could click apply to other studies, pick your iodine from the drop down, click apply, and it would apply the same motion correction transformation. But obviously that was a little bit, you know, clicky, you know, a little bit more, you know, sort of an extra step really to remember. Now it will apply automatically to the subsequent image for the dual isotope. So here, if I just click on compute and then on OK, you can see here that it's also updated my iodine dynamic data set as well. And you can pick which, whether you want the thyroid or the thyroid to be the primary data set for your motion correction using the selection box up at the top here. So that's just a nice new sort of tweak in terms of efficiency for processing. Similarly for gastric emptying, again, just wanted to show you a couple of sort of more motion correction related features. So now, so if you do motion correction on the anterior, it will automatically apply it to the posterior, but this was to show what it will do when it falls, or when not when it falls over, but when it's not happy. What it will do is it will do a check of the times, and if the acquisition time is not the same for the anterior and posterior series, then it will not apply the motion correction to the posterior. So it's just a safety net to make sure that you're not having inappropriate corrections applied. So yeah, so you can see here that this posterior image was 931 and the anterior image was 824. So it's smart in terms of the application of motion correction, automatic motion correction as well. With the gastric emptying, we've got some extra options. So we've now got an option here for decay correction. So you can override the isotope that is used for the decay correction. So if you don't want it to pick up the isotope from the header and you want it to use the isotope that's specified within this parameter, it will use this for the decay correction rather than loading in the using the DICOM header isotope. Similarly as well, where is it? We've got some extra markers. Sorry, whereabouts? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So again, we've got some extra custom markers that I mentioned before. So yeah, lots of configurability here, and obviously you can add in more as your heart desires. Okay, so
5 minutes to go, Lynn, before the question session. So
okay, yeah, okay, no problem. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so hiders. Was this one, wasn't it? So version 5 brought us the ability to be able to combine dynamics. So you could load in sort of a pre-post stimulus dynamic, for example, and just like in the renogram application, it would combine the two on the time activity curve. In version 6, that functionality has now been extended, so you can now process a delayed static alongside an early dynamic. Also as well, you do have, again, some options for additional markers within here, which was something that was proposed or put forward as an improvement suggestion. So meal markers, for example, you can now add those on however you require as part of your workflow. Okay, so that's that. So on to a few new things to show you. So I mentioned about a NEMA quality control application for CT. So that actually came in version 5.1 rather than version 6, but it's possibly something that some of you haven't seen. So I just thought I would show you it very quickly, just so that you're aware that it is available. I don't think it's something that is used, or this procedure isn't routinely used in the UK. I think this product or this application has been developed mainly in response to the requests from the States. Again, going back to what I was saying before, you know, I think that it's always good to have these extra tools available, just and be aware of them in case you'd like to implement them as part of your workflow. So you have options for daily and monthly, so daily being uniformity and noise check, and it will place your ROIs according to the NEMA procedure, and it will obviously report the statistics that are required for that test. So if I click on clear here and then do noise, it will give me my noise regions, and then going to monthly again. So linearity gives me the ROIs that are required for that test, and then moving on, we have resolution, slice thickness, and again, variation on slice thickness unsummed. So yeah, so that's just a very quick taster really that is there. Now, one of the things that I know a lot of you have been waiting for is CCAT. So CCAT has been processed on Hermes for a long time now, or the facility to process on Hermes has been available for a long time, but it's been in a hybrid viewer macro, which, as Helena mentioned before, is not a CE marked sort of validated application, and the onus is very much on the site to maintain the macro and make sure that you're happy with the results that are being provided. Now the onus is all on us. So we have migrated the macro into an application, and it is now a CE mark dedicated application. It will work for data sets which have a standard or which do not have a standard. So however your workflow is configured, I'm sure that this will give you what you need. It will also accept whole body or static images, and as you can see, it's incredibly slick. So all I did there was load it in, and it has automatically calculated the retention. It's automatically done the background correction, and it will decay correct using the information that has been contained in the header for each one of the timings of the series. So it's very smart and very easy to use. String matching wise, it can be done based on the on the sort of standard string matching tools, or if you wanted to, you can configure it so that it will pick up either detector 1 or detector 2 as your anterior and posterior. You've now got a lovely configurability here for normal ranges, so you can define it for your custom, or you could select the standard. It's entirely up to you. Another nice thing as well, so you can see that with your backgrounds here, it doesn't have the patient demographics. So obviously your background series may be acquired under another or as part of another patient's acquisition. So this is obviously just to make sure that there's no ambiguity with patient, and also as well, the prints will always go back to the first acquisition of the patient, of the CCAT patient, and not the background series. So it's really nice.
Can I ask you a quick question about the backgrounds? So yeah, really excited about CCAT. I think this will be used in quite a lot of places.
Yep.
One of the
Great.
So the processing would just be, as Lynn said, you can load it in. It will do everything for you. come up with the result and it would just be a print screen from here. But a check that you might want to do is to window down on the backgrounds to see if there's any striping. So if you just hit the B key over one of those images, Lynn, yes, there we go, okay. You can get the color bar up. So yeah, I think when I put this in BARTS, I will make sure that the color bar is showing by default on the backgrounds to encourage the windowing to happen. I mean, they all look pretty good. Maybe that top left one might have a slight stripe happening at the bottom, but it's only small. So yeah, we just looked for this to see if there was any patient walking past during the acquisition. So, yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Oh, you can see that on the other too. So that B key can be used to get the color bar going on any of the images. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be sort of a game changer, really, isn't it? You know, I think that it's so nice to have it actually as part of the processing suite rather than as a macro. You know, and it is just so easy to use. You know, it's going to be lovely for people to finally retire those spreadsheets. So, okay, so finally, moving on. How are we doing? Am I okay just to take a couple of minutes, Steve, just to show a bit of the ratios?
Yeah, I think so. There's currently no questions in the question box, so we should be okay.
Okay. So one of the new applications as part of version 6 is ROI ratio functionality. So there's a couple of different clinical applications for which I have been informed, or I have become aware that people are using these for, and we have responded to that. Some of them have been created as a dedicated ROI ratio application, but there is a very generic ROI ratio as well, so you could utilize that and customize it depending on how you were wanting to process your ratio studies. So the first one that I was going to show you is an iodine 123 MIBG ADRE view from GE. Now, let me just find it and then I can show you. So I've done a little bit of reading on AdReview because I wasn't actually familiar with it. And as I say, I think with this processing technique, or with this acquisition technique, again, it's mainly been driven by utilization in the States. But so MIBG AdReview can be used for primary or metastatic pheochromocytoma detection, put my teeth in, but also as well as in this application, it can be used for assessment of sympathetic innervation of the myocardium. Now, I found a statement about this, and it said in patients with New York Heart Association class 2 or 3 heart failure and left ventricular ejection fraction of less than or equal to 35%. I'm sure you know more about what that means than I do. But that seems to be the indication criteria for AdReview in the States. So with the application, as I mentioned, this has actually been developed as a dedicated heart mediastinal ratio application. So it's got a few sort of extra features on top of it from the generic ROI ratio application. We've got a heart ROI and we've got a mediastinal ROI. Now you can do a manual mediastinal ROI, but GE do provide a method for an automatic mediastinal ROI, which has been worked into the software. And so the methodology that it uses to create the automatic ROI within the application is observing the method that GE have recommended for their studies. So I'm going to show you that very quickly in a moment. Again, you've got lots of configurability. So, you know, at the moment, obviously it's very basic, but you can change things around and you can, you know, make things how you want them to look. And also as well, there is an AdReview normal range. So you can either choose to use that and it will pull that through to the expected ratio in the results table. Or, you know, if you do go down the route of implementing AdReview within your department, and you can work out custom normal, then by all means we can configure that within here as well. So in terms of operation of the application, the heart region is just a, well, here is just a freehand ROI, just making sure that you're not including any of the liver or any of the lungs, and yeah, you're just capturing the uptake of the heart. Now you'll notice here it doesn't automatically move onto the mediastinal ROI, and the reason for this is because we've got the automatic ROI activated, and what it wants us to do is use the measurement tool. What you do is you click on the top of the apices, the middle of the top of the apices, and then from this it will transect the horizontal line at an equidistant point, and then from there it looks down to identify the lowest pixel, or the lowest value pixel, and then from there it will then use that as a center point to place the mediastinal region. So this will obviously vary in terms of placement on a case-by-case basis, but this is the methodology that GE have recommended for the placement of this ROI. Yeah, and then from this, obviously it will work out the heart to mediastinal ratio. So counts per pixel of the heart divided by counts per pixel of the mediastinal region, and then it will report that as a ratio. As I say, I'm not familiar. I don't claim to be familiar with AdReview at all, but I did find some references to the ratio being useful for identifying patients in terms of mortality risk. So if they've got a lower 1 or 2 year mortality risk, they've got a higher ratio, or over 1.6, I think it was, in terms of the ratio. So it seems to be in terms of sort of, I guess, stratification, you know, and yeah, identifying risk. So that's something that's new. Similarly, CERT, we've got a dedicated hepatopulmonary shunt application now, so liver-lung shunt, or lung-liver shunt, which you could use for your yttrium 90 planning. This is just for planar images, and this, again, I think it replaces a macro that was being used in Canada. So yeah, something that has been worked into a CE marked application. It can be configured so that it accepts 2 images or 4 images. So that would be separate anterior posterior liver, separate anterior posterior lungs, or possibly all combined together. So it's entirely up to you, or sort of whatever fitted your acquisition technique. Now, obviously, with this case, it's not quite great because the posterior lung ROI here does actually go off the field of view. So it's not an ideal case, but unfortunately, I couldn't find another one. But it does show the principle of the application.
We've just got about a minute left now. I think there may be a question or two as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you had anything else to say that was.
So the final one, I was just going to very quickly show the cardiac amyloid. So again, this is just the generic ratio application. So this would be the one that potentially you could use for left, right, early, late, for example, ratios. And you can either do that based on 1 static or 2 static. Obviously here we've got it based on 1. Yeah, lots of configurability with terms of how you want to draw your regions, yeah, with this particular case, so this is a PYP technetium study that was performed for cardiac amyloidosis, again something that's growing in popularity in the States. Again, I'm not really familiar with sort of cardiac amyloid management, but the research that I did seemed to suggest that using a heart to a contralateral lung ROI ratio then linked in with differentiation of different types of amyloidosis. So, but again, you know, it's not something that I know very, you know, I don't claim to know much about. So that was it really. So just finally, just in terms of the user interface, another sort of an aside feature really that this does demonstrate is you'll see here that it's now you've got the option to show the energy window, so that's quite useful, obviously in hybrid viewer displays, so to have that option activated in the overlay. Okay, so just finally, I'll just do my last slide, Steve, and then I promise to be quiet. So obviously to hear any more about any of these new features or to register your interest in having it installed on your system when it does come out, you know, please drop us a line and let us know. As always, we encourage you to feedback on your thoughts on the software, and also put forward any improvement suggestions. Obviously, we're very, very keen to work together with you to deliver something that's, you know, as Helen had mentioned before, it's clinically valid, but also as well, we want it to be a useful tool in your patient workflows. And also as well, just as a little request really, so going forwards, we're going to be doing this newsletter on a regular basis, and if you do have any requests or any suggestions about hybrid viewer hints and tips and that kind of thing that you'd like to be covered as part of those newsletters, please drop me a line, and we'll get those answered as part of the newsletter releases. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Lynn. It's a very comprehensive overview there of the changes to hybrid viewer. We just got time for one, possibly two. Well, we haven't got time really, but we'll make time for one or more, two questions, I think. So,
I did tell you I'd be able to fill the time, Steve.
So, I'm going to call back to the presentation Gemma Roberts from the morning session, who will just explain to us how cardiac MIBG can be used for other applications. Gemma?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, great. Thanks, Gemma.
Hi. I hope this is helpful. I did my PhD on cardiac MIBG.
Okay, cool. Cool.
So the heart to media styling ratios are very dependent on the collimator used. So that normal range from the ADMIRE study in the US on heart failure, that's only valid if you use low energy, high res collimators, that 1.6 normal range. And one of the other uses for cardiac MIBG is in dementia and Parkinson's disease. So you get low uptake if you've got Lewy bodies that are affecting your sympathetic nerve function. It can be used as an alternative to DAT scan, and it's mentioned in the NICE guidelines. So, for example, if people are claustrophobic or can't have DAT scan, it's an option.
That's really interesting. So you get that cardiac uptake reduction.
That's right.
With the dementia. Okay, so rather than having a brain scan, you have a heart scan for that.
Essentially.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
Gemma.
Thanks, Gemma. That's really interesting. Thank you.
We've got another question. This is from Dan McGowan. Hi, Dan. He says,
Hi, Dan.
thanks, Lynn. We're looking forward to getting version 6. For CCAT, what happens if the day 7 is delayed for some reason? Will hybrid viewer automatically write day 8 or 9 or 10, or will it always say 7? Are you able to have different normal ranges for later days?
So with the string matching, as I showed, so you can either configure it so that it will pick up string matching from the series description, in which case if you had it labeled, for example, as D8, it would pull through as D8. It will, I don't believe that it will
can
actually...
Have a look at the display itself. Can you just show that
yeah, sure.
thing again? So I think, so I know because it's taking the timings from the DICOM header, it will correctly decay correct it for sure. I'm pretty sure
I don't know whether it will change
a normal range based on that. I think you probably have to have multiple applications with different normal ranges set, or you'd have to go in and manually overwrite your normal range with one that is appropriate for 10 days, for example.
Yes.
Okay, so I can see in the table there, we've got normal range bracket 7 days, haven't we? So, yeah, so that would have to go with, is it possible to access the title of that table, or is it always going to say 7 days? Or it says day 7 in the,
No, it all looks like it always.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it won't allow
Is it
you
there?
to.
No, it doesn't.
So
Yeah, it just says
yeah,
normal values.
it will calculate it correctly, but it will still
But it
say
won't
day
calculate.
7 everywhere in the application.
Mm.
And yeah, you'd need to overwrite those normal ranges with ones appropriate for day 10.
But if the
Yeah.
series description, I mean, it wouldn't be suffixing or adding in the D7 into the series description or the process label. It would just represent what was assigned to the data set.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that in the result,
but in here it would be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, like the heading would be misleading there because it would still say day 7, but it wouldn't be. But the retention calculation would be correct, but the rest of it would be a bit misleading.
Yeah.
And yeah, Dan follows up, request for version 7 maybe. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
This is what user group meetings are for.
Absolutely.